Passive is like, okay, I work in a company, in a, I don't know, an IT firm or something like that, and you know, I normally take lunch with my colleagues, but for the last 2 weeks I've not eaten lunch with them, right? And then they're coming forward and they're like, okay, you used to eat lunch with us, what's going on, have we upset you? And then the reply from the Muslim is, oh, it's the holy month of Ramadan, I'm fasting, for the last 2 weeks I've not been eating lunch because I'm fasting between sunset, or sunrise, sorry, and sunset. And then you give this answer, you give this kind of passive dawah. You passively, only when they came to you did you answer. So we want to move more towards an active sort of engagement. So people are clarified about Islam. As I mentioned, barriers are removed, suspicions come down. There's mutual cooperation, understanding, harmony and peace. That's the key thing that we want to propagate in our existence in this country. We want to live at peace with all people. And we'll cover things about extremism and the wrong ways and stuff like that will be basically gone over in the course. So an effective map on how to give dawah, so how to invite others to Islam, unveil your blind spots, no deep philosophy. In this course there's no deep philosophy. We'll cover some basic concepts, some very basic philosophy, easy stuff, nothing complicated, nothing deep. And it's not the be all and end all, there's many other courses out there. There's many courses that IERA does, this charity, they do courses on different topic areas, like the philosophy of science, evolutionary biology, or Darwinism, and other areas that are more specific and specialised to get this understanding about Islam and stuff like that. So, has anyone been involved in dawah? I think Brother Hassan, you have done some street dawah in Chura Centre?
In
Falmouth.
We've done in Falmouth.
Okay. Have you been involved on the body?
Yeah, it was me, Brother Jonathan, and Brother Hassan.
Yeah. We had some brothers.
And a few
some of the brothers are not here.
Excellent. So you've got a bit of experience, yeah? Have you been to a dawah training course? I think IERA came here some years ago.
He came.
Yeah,
That time, we had one brother came. I can't remember his name though.
I think it was
Labib Ahmed.
Oh, Labib Ahmed, yes. Yes, and I remember that was back in about 2013, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah.
Yes.
That was the time that I become kind of like Muslim then.
You become practicing,
practicing then.
Yes.
It was my first thing, I can't remember.
You can't remember clearly, no. Okay, no problem. So, have you ever had to explain Islam to someone? Maybe a colleague or student or customer or anyone in your life?
Every day, really.
Every day, yeah? Okay. So who feels comfortable in explaining Islam to non-Muslims? Yeah? Okay, Subha does. I know Subha's got experience because we stayed at Subha's house last night and he was giving us some stories about some of the contact he's had, some of the people he's met and the experiences and stuff like that. It was very interesting. Anyone else? Jonathan? Time to
I feel absolutely confident if I've got another brother there.
Right.
Not even speaking. He doesn't even have to be speaking,
shadowing.
but just there.
Yeah.
It gives me all the confidence in the world. But when I'm on my own, you sometimes can be ganged upon.
Oh, okay. Is that in the street dawah you're referring to?
Yeah, street dawah. But even if I'm speaking to a colleague and another person goes, "What? You're Muslim? Well, why?" And then you get different.
Yeah, different.
And it's when you get ganged upon, that's where
you get a bit nervous and stuff, don't you?
Well, it's like you're on the defensive and then...
Right. Okay.
Apart from that, that's...
Okay, that's a fair comment. Okay, brilliant guys. So moving on. Okay, before we know about dawah, before we know what is dawah, we need to know who the creator is, or the understanding of the creator in Islam. There may be variances with other religions. Like, for example, Christians may say that God is Jesus Christ. God is Jesus the man, right? But in Islam, we refer to God as Allah, right? That's just an Arabic word. So Allah, for the people who are not so clear, Allah is simply a word that in the Arabic language, it doesn't have a plural, right? It doesn't have a gender either. So there's no gods like you get in English or goddess. It means the one true God. The creator being is whenever we use the word Allah, we're referring to the creator being, or the uncreated creator is how we perceive this force, if you want to call him a force or a power source, in the sense of he's the all-powerful, he's the all-knowing, he's the all-loving, he's the all-wise, he's the all-seeing, he's the all-hearing. That is who this creator being is, Allah. He's a super powerful creator. And he created the whole universe, which we'll talk more about. So to know Allah is very important, because look, that's the God that the Muslims worship. Muslims worship Allah. So to invite others to this understanding, or this way, you have to invite them to Allah, to the God, the creator being. Yeah? God, you can use the word God, it's not a problem, or you can say creator, use what you're comfortable with, but sometimes if we say God, immediately in some people's minds it conjures up a certain picture, like a man in the sky with a long grey beard, or a statue of like a monkey for the Hindus, or something else. So, you can say God, Allah, the creator, the all-powerful, and we'll talk more about this sort of stuff on the next slide here. It breaks down something called Tawheed, right? So Tawheed, it's an Arabic word, Tawheed. It simply means monotheism, or to believe in and worship one true God alone. So it's his oneness. This element about, look, God is one and that's significant. That's what Tawheed is, right? God is one and it's significant. It's very important for Muslims because it goes back to this thing about worshipping him, pleasing him, and believing in him. So there is a leap of faith. We can't see God, for example. He's part of this metaphysical reality. He doesn't dwell in the physical realm. But there's many things you can't see, but they're there. Like you can't see your minds, but you know they're there. And there's other things like this that exist. You can't see them per se, but they're there, right? So this monotheism is broken down into like categories, if you like. Islamically, there's categories. So there's the lordship, there's the names and attributes, and there's the worship. These three categories, right? So Rububiyyah is Arabic for lordship, right? So Rububiyyah, or lordship, is to say that he's the one that sends the rain, this creator being. He gives life, he gives death, he causes the plants to grow, he controls the weather, all this kind of maintaining aspect, and specifically, more importantly, the creation aspect. He's the creator being. Allah has got a creative power. Yeah, he's a creator. He created the universe, and he had no prior example, he had no teacher before him, he had no one to explain to him, this is how you make things. He didn't need that, and he created from nothing, right? So it's very special, a very special type. It's like the original, most powerful creator, if you like, the true creator. When we take creation to its primary base level, we're talking about how God created, not us guys. Like you can say I created the cup, yeah, but you only manipulated the materials. You got the wood and the paper and you made it, or I made the tea or created this or that. I created this new car, but you used a team of guys, you used metal, you used manufacturing things and designs. You just manipulated material. You didn't just really create it from nothing, right? So names and attributes, I sort of touched upon it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means like the most perfect, the most high. It's an extra little accolade or praise that we use after we mention this creator being. So it's an Arabic phrase, but I'll try and explain much of the Arabic. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord, the creator being, he basically has got many names and attributes. Does anyone know how many names Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has got? And think about this, because I like to ask a lot of trick questions to wake people up so people don't fall asleep during the training. But how many names does Allah have? Have a good think. Excellent. So there's a hadith that talks about 99. A specific hadith that talks about 99. A hadith is just a narration. It's you could say like a historical document that is carried from the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in Arabic. It's carried forward up to this time here. And there's one hadith, this narration that talks about 99 specific names. But that's a specific set of names in the 99. There's actually more revealed in the Quran and the Sunnah. So the Quran being our corpus or text, and the Sunnah is like this. The Sunnah is the way of the Prophet Muhammad, basically. It's the hadith and these narrations and stuff like that. So, okay, but think a bit deeper. Is it limited to 99?
No.
What do you think of Labari?
I think that all the good attributes, all the good things that we know, could be, because he's the creator, it could be attributed to him. But anything bad,
yes,
that we think we cannot attribute to Allah.
Okay, you're right in the right area. You're right in the right area. So all good we attribute to Allah, but we don't make up names for him.
No.
That would be contrary to Tawheed. That would be very dangerous. We don't say Allah is the angry one because he gets angry. Because we do have this theology in Islam that God does get angry, but for certain reasons. There's anger. But we don't say Allah is the angry one. We don't make this new name for him. He didn't name himself like that, right? But you're right about all goodness is attributed to him. But what the scholars have spoken about, scholars of Islam, they say with this creator being, with Allah, with God, there's actually an infinite number of names. It's not limited in any way. He's revealed a certain number to the humankind, but with it is an infinite number of names. And that befits His Majesty. Because Allah is infinite in His essence anyway, yeah? He's capable of doing all things within His Godship, right? Which makes sense of who He is. Like He can't kill Himself, for example. Well, he can't destroy Himself or lie or do wrong things or sin or whatever like humans do. So He can do all things within what befits His Majesty. So names and attributes, there's many names and attributes as we mentioned, 99 as our guy at the back. Actually, do you want to...
Arda.
What's his name? Sorry?
Arda.
Arda.
Come close.
Come to the front, yeah. If we can get another seat at the end maybe, because then we've got a nice line of people. You're right. Is it Arda?
Arda.
Arda. You're right about 99, Arda. Very good. Well done, yeah. There's 99. The hadith talks about whoever enumerates them, he will enter paradise, right? It's as a reward. Whoever not just memorizes these names of God, but who acts upon them and is genuine to them, true to the names. Because you don't want to be a hypocrite. You want to be like, okay, if God is the all-loving, then I'll show love to others. If God is the all-seeing, then I'll look at good things. If God is the all-hearing, I'll listen to only good. And so on and so forth. You try to imbibe these names, you call upon these names. You ask, for example, you want to be enriched in wealth. You ask, Allah is, one of His names is the most rich. Yeah, in Arabic it's called Al-Ghaniyu, the most rich, the all-rich. So you would ask the all-rich for enrichment, for something you need. I want promotion at work, I want to buy a new car, some worldly need, you ask this creator being for it, right? So basically, some of the other names, and there's many names, I won't go through all of them, but we've got, for example, Ar-Rahman, yeah? Ar-Rahman is the all-merciful, Ar-Rahim is another type of mercy, specific for the believers that mercy is. It's a slightly different one. We've got Al-Wadud in Arabic, the all-loving. We've got so many, I can't keep up with them all. Al-Awwalu, the first. Al-Akhiru, the last. And there's a long list of these names that make up who Allah is. So He's not like a 1D God. He's not just like limited in attributes. He's a very, I wouldn't say a complex being, and that would be blasphemous to say that anyway, because there's nothing like unto Him. We cannot attribute Him to anything like the creation. He's a unique being. We know Him as He has described Himself, and this is the Tawheed. So we're focusing upon this very well, because this is the core of what Muslims believe in. They believe in this monotheism. You know, all the time you hear about Muslims, they believe in one God. Muslims, they believe in one God. Muslims, they believe in one. This thing is repeated over and over again. But what is this one God, and what is this belief in oneness, right? And that's what the Tawheed is. It's very critical. It's super important, because it actually defines you as a Muslim. It enters you into Islam. And the opposite, which we'll talk about, is the last category before we go on to the opposite, is called the worship, and that's the most important category, where you worship, you do everything for this creator being alone. So all of our lives as Muslims is for Allah alone. Everything we do is for Allah. From our walking, sleeping, eating, working, relations with people, how we carry ourselves, what we do, every single split second of our lives is devoted to Allah, not for any created being or anything other than Allah. If we do it for others, this would be the gravest sin in Islam, which is known as shirk. Shirk means to associate partners with Allah. So you say, there is this Allah, this God, this being, but I'm going to make something else equal to Him, and in effect direct worship to that as well, by loving it, revering it, putting acts of worship towards it. So it could be a prophet, for example. You might say, there's Allah, but I hold the Prophet Moses to be equal to God, right? And I direct prayers towards him as well. That will effectively destroy your Islam. It's called, in Arabic it's called shirk. Spelled like shirk, right? Shirk at the end there. And that's a very dangerous thing in Islam. And it's not something, very sadly, we live in times where the Muslims have got really embedded in shirk. It's not something uncommon to the Muslim world. If you go across the Muslim world, this is the sad reality, the weakness of the Muslims. They've fallen prey to this shirk. So they do it in many practices. So you go to India or Pakistan or even Egypt. In India, Pakistan, there's people calling to the dead, people in the grave. They're doing the major shirk. They're negating their Islam. You go to Egypt, you go to, I don't know, Cyprus or Syria or other places where there's Muslim majorities, and they're making circumambulation around graves, directing a form of worship to the dead in the grave. They say it's the grave of Fatima, a pious person of the past or whatever. So a lot of the Muslims have gone towards shirk, and the Ummah as it stands, because if you look at the state of the Muslims, you don't see a rosy picture, if we're honest. If we look at the Muslim world, we see a map on fire. We see this happening in Afghanistan, right? We see Iraq war. We see Syria. Syria is totally destroyed. Yeah, we see a mess in Palestine. We see Burma. It just keeps going round the whole globe, right? A mess upon mess. And scholars of Islam have clarified that given the causal factor for this humiliation, because it's a state of humiliation for the Muslims, is the amount, the gross manifestation of shirk in the ummah at this time. The Muslims are drowning in shirk. They've left the love or the worship of Allah, and they've started to do practices which negate their Islam, and that loses this connection with the God. We might look like a Muslim, talk like a Muslim, act like a Muslim, but the connection has been severed, right? And this is extremely dangerous, because then we lose the love of Allah and the guidance of Allah, and we end up in these humiliation states where Allah punishes. You know, the punishment comes. And we can't deny this as Muslims. We can't lie. We can't say, yeah, the Muslim map and the picture in the Ummah is in a state of super strength. You know, non-Muslims can observe and see this as well. They can see the state of the Muslims. Muslims are drinking alcohol, or lying, or cheating, or gambling. They're doing many sins, but the worst one is this shirk that we talk about. Making equals is the gravest sin in Islam. Always be wary of this, because we can all do it. And remember, brothers and sisters and everyone, shirk doesn't just mean, okay, I call upon someone in the grave, I ask him to answer my prayers, I make him equal to God. That's not one form of it. Shirk can come in many different forms. It could be following your desires, putting something else above the Creator. It can come in a non-tangible form. So be on the lookout, be very wary. Verify, check your heart. Have you done any shirk? Are you doing shirk? Because it creeps in very easily. It can start with just showing off your good deeds to others. I'm a very pious Muslim, I'm very grand, I'm very good, look at me. This is how shirk can start, and it can become the major shirk, right? So it's very subtle as well. So once we know who Allah is, right, this Lord, creator being, the one we spoke about, the perfect, all-powerful creator being, once we know who he is, very important to know who he is. He's got his names and attributes. Remember, he's not a malicious Lord. He's all loving, he's all seeing, he's all kind, he's all merciful. He's a very loving God. He wants people to go to the paradise. He wants people to be guided. And that is the ultimate end goal for the Muslims anyway, is to reach a paradise, which we'll talk more about a little bit later. What is this paradise? Why do the Muslims talk about a next life, a next life, a next life? There's a hellfire and there's a heaven, a paradise and a paradise, a reward and a punishment, right? And we talk a lot about this, and we believe in this in Islam, because we don't believe it's just about this life. We believe the real life is to come. So when we pass away, when we die, we're resurrected and we're put into one of the two abodes. Either we go to the hellfire or we go to the heaven. We don't say permanently to the hellfire, but we're aiming to get to that heaven. We're aiming to do as many good deeds, to have our scales heavy on the day of judgment, and we pass the test of life. You were a good person, true and sincere to the God, upon the Tawheed, the monotheism. You were true to it, you didn't do the shirk, and you passed the test of life, or you failed, and you're going to be punished now before you end up, because we believe that Muslims, they've still got this element of the monotheism is there with the kalima, which is the shahada or the testimony of faith. So we don't want to go to the hellfire, is what I'm trying to say in short. No one wants to go there. It's a place of eternal damnations and punishments, and a very bad punishment, right? And anyway, so when we know who Allah is, it becomes a duty to call to His way. You can see the connection there, because you have to understand from all of this monotheism, we understand that God is the greatest. You know, when the Muslims say Allahu Akbar, that phrase, Allahu Akbar in Arabic, it simply means God is the greatest. He's the power source, He's the greatest thing in our lives. And we love Him, we worship Him, we do everything for Him alone, and that's what the Muslim's life is about in a nutshell. You know, we don't want to ever go to extremes. Extremism can creep in very easily, and we will try to keep on a middle, balanced path with our worship of this being, of this creator being. So what is Dawah? This term that we're talking about, IERA talks a lot about Dawah. Dawah simply is a phrase in Arabic. It's a noun. It means to call or to invite. In the Islamic context, it means to call or to invite to Allah, the creator being, and Islam, right? So they're sort of together. There's some verses of the Quran there. You can see in Arabic on the right. There's a little verse there, chapter 16, verse 125, call to the way of your Lord. So it's a command from Allah in the Quran. Allah, this creator being, has commanded the Muslims, invite others to Islam. It's a command, right? Even Christians have got a similar thing. You know, Jesus, they say that Christians say that Jesus would want to invite the people to the way of Christ or of Christianity. Another verse, and that there might grow out of you a community who invite all unto all that is good. Okay, so this is another verse of the Quran. And our duty is to convey, not convert. We can't convert anyone. We must always remember this. Because sometimes as callers, people doing dawah, we think, oh, the guidance is in our hands. He's either going to become a Muslim because of my work or not. This is all wrong thinking. Think of the story or the example of Noah alayhi salam. Noah alayhi salam, He called the people for 950 years. And do you know how many people accepted, the total number of people that accepted? Anybody?
80 top.
Yeah, about 50 to 80, about 80-ish, right? So if you average it out, I haven't done the maths super well, but once every 11 years, someone became, you'd say, a Muslim. Because we believe Islam has been the religion since Adam and Eve, since the beginning of time, if you want to say that. It's been that one, worshipping one God alone has been the real, true religion. That's what our belief, right? Only because, you know, for example, Jesus, Christians might say no, but it was Christianity, but we believe that Christ was a Muslim. Jesus, he never at any point in his life, and nor does it say in the Bible, he never said worship me. He never directed people's worship to him as a human being. And he didn't have divine powers. Yeah, he could cure the dead or whatever, we believe in that, and even his birth was miraculous, but these were powers given by God for specific instances. He didn't have divinity, right? He wasn't a transcendent being on the earth. Doesn't make sense anyway, because transcendent, once we say transcendent, we mean that he's out of the physical realm. Yeah, he's a being that doesn't exist in the creation. So basically, it's very important that we know we're just giving this dawah, this invitation. We're not guiding anyone, right? We're just giving the invite, the call. So another verse here, it says, and who is better in speech than the one who invites to Allah and does righteousness and says, indeed I am of the Muslims. Chapter 41, verses 33 or verse 33. So it's vital in our call to Allah, to call to Allah. That's critical because of the Tawheed, the monotheism. So that's critical. But the approach can be diverse, provided it's within the boundaries of Islam. So through our words and actions, this is really important because if you think about it, right, there's different ways you can give dawah. It doesn't just mean street dawah, for example, giving out leaflets in the street, engaging the British public in the street, meeting them, giving them sweets or teas or whatever you do in the street realm is one avenue of dawah. But you could do other things, like the mosque here. They do the open days. They invite the non-Muslims into the grounds of the mosque and let them see around, observe prayers, have a little lunch, do some, see what Islam is really about firsthand. That's another good form of dawah as well. And there's many other ways. There's things like exhibitions. Online is a really good way of doing dawah. Is online, because look, the online world is huge, brothers and sisters. The online world is a world in itself. Yeah, and I was talking to Brother Ibrahim, you know, we had a 5-hour, the way I drive, it's more like a 7-hour drive, coming from London, my speed is a bit very slow, right? We had a long drive, so we had a long time to chat, and I was telling Ibrahim about a story that happened about a year ago, and I was at home, back in London, I was in my living room talking to my wife, I was telling her, when I grew up, I was really interested in IT, and my brother was really interested in drawing. He's really gifted at drawing, and he's an architect now, he has his own business, right? So he's good at artistic stuff, right? But I wasn't into the drawing, I was into like the technology. I loved computer systems and the things they could do and all of that stuff, right? So this was 30 years ago, it was 1989, I was 16, and what happened was, a competition came in a magazine. All these years ago, a competition came to draw the best picture using a computer system. You know, a package like Paint, Windows Paint. You know how simple it is? Spray can and fill and all this basic stuff, right? It was like today's Photoshop, but 30 years ago. So today's Windows Paint was state of the art for those days, 30 years ago, 1989, 1987, around that time. Anyway, long story short, he draws the picture for the competition on the computer, and he draws the best picture and he wins the competition. And it's a big exhibition in London. Brother Muhammad, you probably know, being a Londoner, you know, you've got the Earl's Court Exhibition Hall, the Olympia, all these places in Hammersmith area, these big purpose-built exhibition halls. He's there, his picture's there, it's on a big poster like that, printed, colour printing. Now, colour printing didn't even exist hardly then, it's 30 years ago. Now we've got 3D printers, but then, colour printing, it did exist, colour printing, but it was really basic. That this was printed on a big board, there's an excitement, there's people from all over Europe, there's all this buzz and euphoria. I'm really amazed, he's won the competition, what is he gonna win, and this and that. And I tell my wife this whole story, right? And at the end of it, she's like, you know what, he must have been really good at drawing. I wish I could have seen that picture. I'm like, no, those magazines that we had, they're gone, they're finished. They're buried away, you know, my parents have passed away, they were in the house has got sold. Look, it's a finished chapter, right? But then, and this is what I'm trying to illustrate, the power of the internet and the online world of dawah. I just remembered the name of the magazine. That's all I remember from this 30-year-old memory, the name of the magazine. So I just started typing in my phone. I thought, randomly, let's type it for a laugh. Literally for a laugh, I typed it in. And it just comes up on my phone. bang, it said the name of the magazine, and someone had scanned in every single page of this magazine, literally every single page of the magazine, right? So I was like, flicking through. I spent an hour flicking through these magazines because it took that, because I didn't know what edition it was in. But I remember clearly it was printed as the prize winner was printed in the magazine. So I literally looked at edition 1, spent an hour going from like 1 to 20. There was like 40 of them. It was about halfway through. I'm still trying to find it now because I was telling Brother Ibrahim and he started trying to find it in the car, right, as we were driving here. But I literally did the search, found it, and I showed her on my phone, that's the picture. And she's probably more shocked that I found the picture than the story itself, sort of thing. It's a bit bizarre, right? But the point of my story is, this online world is super powerful. There's a lot of disinformation and misinformation about Islam in the online realm. A lot of like hatred, if you like. There's people that talk bad about Islam and they don't know what they're talking about. Unfortunately, it's become it's very difficult as a non-Muslim. If you want to look objectively at what is Islam, what are the true teachings, you'll find a lot of garbage and nonsense and background noise. It's all out there. Yeah, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a paedophile. He married a 6-year-old. All these kind of bold statements that are not qualified. That's the danger of the internet. So it's a double-edged sword. It's super powerful. Yeah, you can learn those who are good on it, but it's a double-edged sword. You can fall into pitfalls. You can go the wrong way. Especially as a revert, which we'll talk more about tomorrow. I'll talk about the how to look after reverts, people that come to Islam. So if you guys are free, please try to come tomorrow for, I believe it's 10 o'clock to about 1 o'clock. We'll do a short course, and then me and Brother Ibrahim, we're heading back to London. So that tomorrow's course will be about new Muslim mentorship, how to look after reverts, right? So basically, you've got to understand that on the internet, you could send one tweet or something and it can go viral, and you don't know what the effects are going to be, where it's going to end up, who's going to listen to that message. Someone might become a Muslim, might be interested in Islam, they make that changeover. What is their choice, right? So through our words and actions, the point is that the call can be very diverse. It could be anything. Look, there could be a Muslim lady, for example, she's wearing the headscarf, she's walking in the Devon countryside area, whatever, I don't know the towns around here very well, but say it's Falmouth or somewhere, and there's a glass bottle on the road. She picks it up, the glass bottle, and she puts it in the bin. That danger is removed from the high street, and some non-Muslims are observing, and they observe she went out of the way to go and pick up the glass, put it in the bin, right, even though she's walking on the other side of the road. And these non-Muslims observe and they realise, okay, she's got a headscarf on, maybe it's connected to their religion, and it absolutely is. Anyone here that is a Muslim will know that removing anything harmful from the road is the lowest branch of faith. So it's not a low thing to say, it's the lowest branch of faith, meaning it's a highly rewarded thing, because you protected the animals, the dogs, the cats, the children, everything. You looked after the environment. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, looked after the environment. Yeah, he didn't damage trees, he didn't drop litter, he didn't cause harm to buildings and stuff like that, like graffiti and vandalism and all the wrong things. No, we love the environment, we care for the animals and the people and everyone. This is how we live at peace, right? So basically, we'll talk a little bit now. I'm obviously condensing the course a little bit because we started a little bit late, and I don't want to drag things on, because around about 2:30, 3 o'clock, we are trying to get to the town centre. I think, Hassan, we're going to go to Falmouth, maybe, is it, brother? Yeah. Falmouth, yeah? So we'll head to Falmouth, do a bit of engagement with the people. I want to give you guys a bit of practical experience of how it is to engage the public as well in this work of Dawah. So you get a taste and a feel for what the work is about, because all of this is a long lecture, it's theoretical, it's words, it's speech or whatever, but when you actually put it into play, into action, it's a different world. So motivations and rewards, that's what we're going to talk about now. A very big part of the Dawah. I want to motivate you guys. I want you guys to understand the rewards of Dawah are very big, which we'll talk about. Actually, Hassan, the laptop is saying running low on battery. So it doesn't say it on the screen, but it's running low here. I don't know if I've got a plug around here, but there's someone on the wall here. Okay.
Kelly was playing games last night on the laptop.
Okay, I'm plugged in. Now I'm on power, yeah? Okay, so let's start off with a little thinker, something to get you guys thinking. If you've seen this information before, which you might have some years ago, maybe Hassan, we did the course with Brother Labib, then no need to call out the right answer, you can just remember what you remember. But for the rest of you guys, what I want you to do is look at this picture and just tell me what your initial thoughts are. That's all you've got to say, your initial thoughts, right? There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. What comes to mind? That's all you've got to do, right? So basically, that's the picture there. And I want to go around the room. Rob, what do you think if you see that picture? Or when you see that picture, sorry.
His choice.
His what, sorry? His choice.
Everyone
Good.
their own.
Everyone, each to their own. Fair enough. That's your view, okay. Abdul Bari,
He has an issue in life.
okay. He has an issue. He doesn't look very smiley.
Yeah,
That's my
he's
view.
like
Yeah, he doesn't-
emotional, like
Emotional.
Yeah, he's like very kind of like
Emotional.
mean looking.
Mean looking, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Mohammed? What do you think?
Typical Londoner. He does look scary.
So he's not like a guy from Devon then? Okay, so if I go out in the high street, I'm not going to meet guys like this. Right, okay. That's a bit of a kind of relief for me. Yeah? Okay, anyone else?
He does look a bit threatening to me.
He does look a bit threatening. I mean, let's be honest. I don't want to sway you guys because it's your views, but I would say he looks at least different from the normal guy because, like, he's got this body piercing right under his lips. I don't know if the picture is very clear, but he's got studs in his chin. He's got these super big earrings. He's got a nose ring. He's got he doesn't really have much hair, and only top or bottom, beard or top or whatever. Anyone else? What do you think? The little young guy there with the blue, white, and
Yusuf.
Yusuf.
Yes,
No, yeah, you can say. What do you think?
He looks like boxer, fighter.
Okay, fair enough. He does look quite built. He does look muscular. Yeah. Anyone else? Yahya.
Oh, it's a heavy metal.
Okay,
like that.
heavy metal guy. Okay. So we've got all these different views, right? I want you to be able to focus on the end of what happened to the after, if you like. That's what he is like now. So that one individual guy there, which we had all these views about, he became a brother. When we say brother, we mean a brother in Islamic faith, right? A Muslim, basically, right? So he transformed totally. And the moral or the meaning behind this slide is very simple. It's to say, look, don't judge the book by the cover. You know, when God guides, when Allah guides, He can guide anyone. And sometimes as Muslims, we do go to extremes. You know, in our thinking at times, it's a natural thing, but we're a little bit like, you know, we might be, for example, Trump, right? He's the enemy of the whole world. He's this and that and the other, right? And he's whatever. Yeah, he is like those things, no doubt, right? He's whatever. There's a lot to say. But don't have so much hatred that if he one day, for example, became a Muslim and he was within your faith and you had to love him with that level, that you have got no room left of love for him. So this is the transformation that God can make. Remember what I said? Only God guides. None of us can guide anyone in this room. We do the work of Dawah, we get the rewards, which we'll talk about, but we don't guide anyone, right? So anyone can be guided at any time. So sometimes we might see a guy like this in the street, or anyone else, you know, a guy with spiked up hair, like a punk or something like that, blue hair, whatever it is, a freaky looking person. Don't switch off with that person. Don't say, I'm not going to give him Dawah, I'm not going to invite him because he looks wrong, he looks like a dropout or whatever. These are radios that we've got which we need to switch off, basically, right? So rewards are pretty, you know, long listed here. I'll probably just go through a few of them, but there's many different rewards. Does anyone know about any rewards for Dawah, Brother Hassan?
The main reward for Dawah is that we fulfill the prophetic mission.
Good, excellent. So we're doing the work of the messengers, because none of the prophets are alive now. That's a key thing, a key factor or common thing. None of the prophets are with us anymore. They've all passed away, apart from Isa, which is Jesus. Jesus, we believe, didn't die. He was lifted to heaven, and he's been there since. So he's with God, if you like, or he's in heaven, and he never died, and he will return. But he's not in this world anymore, and none of the messengers are here, including Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him. He's not here in the world. So the work that they did is on our shoulders, and it's rewardable. It's very rewardable. In fact, there's a particular hadith that talks about a particular colour. Does anyone know that one? Hassan?
Is it the gold camel or the
Yeah,
gold?
the red camel. The red camel,
sorry.
yeah. But it's like worth like gold, basically.
It's like
worth like gold. Yeah, so at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, there was something called the red camel. The red camel was the most prized possession that a person could own, because the camel was like your house, if you like. It was everything, right? You could travel vast distances. It gave you milk. It gave you transportation and all the bits you need. It carried your luggages and loads. It was like the cars of today, if you like. The red Ferrari of today would be the red camel of that time. And what Allah talks about is that if someone accepts the call or listens to your dawah and they become a Muslim from your dawah work, the reward is like getting the red camels. So it's in the plural. So if I gave one of you guys, I don't know, Rob, if I gave you 10 red Bugattis, each worth 20 million, so I've given you 200 million pounds worth of whatever you call it, value, possession, right? You'd be overjoyed, wouldn't you? You'd have 200 million, you'd give up your day job, I'm sure. You'd stop working, that's the first thing, right? Even if you worked for Devon Council and you loved it, you'd give up, right? And you'd come out, you'd have your wealth, and you'd probably travel the world, probably hopefully give dawah and do other things or whatever, right? So the point is, the rewards are like mountains, right? And we're not after this worldly stuff, right? I'm just giving an analogy that the rewards are like mountains for dawah. And this is a key thing you have to understand. It's like, there's a pyramid system there. So if someone accepts Islam, they start praying, right? And then they have a family, they get married, they have kids, then their kids get married and have kids, and so on and so on. That pyramid growth structure, that tree system, is a system of rewards for you, the original initiator of the dawah. Because in Islam, there's something called, it's a very Arabic technical term, it's called sadaqah jariyah, which means continuous charity. It means this: if you build a water well, right, and you put it out in Africa, then all the people that are going to use it when you've passed away, you're getting rewards for, they'll get a reward for drinking clean water, having this good intention, but you get the rewards, a chain of rewards as well. So all the people that continue to use the water well for the next 1,000 years, millennium, whatever, all the rewards while you're in your grave are written in your book of good deeds. That's how merciful this Lord is. This Lord, creator being Allah, He wants us to go to paradise. He's not a malicious God. You know, sometimes I've done some instruction on another more specialist course. It's about the problem of evil and suffering, which I won't go into now. I don't want to go off at an angle, but very quickly some people try to posit, sometimes the neo-atheists, and some people who have that sort of stance, but even some other folk, whoever they are, agnostics or whatever, they try to say, you know, how can your God exist if there's so much evil and suffering in the world? It doesn't make sense to me. The way I like to use sound bites in my dawah to answer things very, what's the word you say, comprehensively. But in a nutshell, you know, they try to posit and say, you know, your God is all powerful, He's all merciful, then why does He inflict the tsunami, like this hurricane in the Bahamas now? Why did He do that? If He's all powerful, why doesn't He just clear up the whole mess? Rebuild the houses, He can do it all like that in a blink, yeah? If He's all merciful, why did He do the hurricane in the first place? Because He's got infinite mercy. Where's the mercy? But it doesn't work like that, because God, Allah, as I mentioned in the beginning, has got 99 names, or an infinite number. Other names is, for example, Al-Hakim, the All-Wise. God is the All-Wise. There's wisdom behind the evil and suffering. A wisdom that we can't always perceive, but it's there, and we know it's there. So, for example, to put it in a simple English statement, and this is what I use in the dawah, I say to people about the problem of evil and suffering, if there was no evil, you wouldn't know what good is. And to this day, every time I've used that phrase, nobody has contended me. No one has countered me, sorry. Nobody said, no, that doesn't make sense, I don't agree. Everyone, even the hardcore atheist, agrees. So evil, we don't like evil, of course, right? Evil is a force, it's created by God to test us. Who's going to be the Adolf Hitlers? Who's going to be the Mother Teresas? Who's going to go towards good? Who's going to go towards bad? Who's going to pass the test of life? Who's going to fail? That's the point of evil. It's a testing ground, and it's created for a reason. So this evil on the outset, remember, one person's evil is another person's good. Someone losing their job might think this is the worst evil that's happened in my life, I'm going to be homeless or whatever. But for the next guy who takes the vacancy, it's a good. So evil is relative, and there's no absolute evil as well. Just to quickly touch upon this, in Islam, we don't believe in absolute evil, right? Which means pure evil. There's no pure evil. There's even the devil, which we call shaitan in Arabic. Somebody might say, but he's absolute evil. He does nothing but evil and wants nothing but people to do shirk and go in the hellfire. But even him, before he became the devil, he had a good past history. Some narrations say there wasn't a space in heaven that he didn't do a worshipping, a prostration towards the God, right? So even in his life history, there was a good time, right? So, sorry, I've gone off at a bit of an angle, but I'm trying to make the point that God is all loving, God is all kind. He's not a cruel God that is painted like that. And the bulk majority of your lives, you'll notice, are times of good anyway. So when some evil does strike you, I don't know, you get an illness, you get the flu or something, it's the lesser than the norm. You don't have the flu for 51 weeks in the year and then 1 week you're back to normal. You normally have 1 week flu and 51 weeks in the year, you're fine. So this evil is there to test and stuff like that. So this thing about blaming God and pinning the evil on Him, it doesn't quite work like that. He is Al-Hakim, He's the All-Wise. He's got an infinite, perfect wisdom, right? His wisdom is an infinite and perfect, divine, all-encompassing, right? It has no flaws, no deficiencies. So he knows absolutely why a certain thing happened. Like a child getting cancer, for example, a 7-year-old child, a little boy or girl, they get cancer, they pass away. According to the Islamic theology, anyone that dies before the age of manhood, adulthood, right, puberty, they enter the paradise regardless of what they did, good or bad. You know, even if they thought they were doing shirk or whatever, right? Even so, the child who's an atheist, hardcore atheist, who